being home,
Mhm.
what can we do to cope? If we don't have access to a therapist right
Mhm.
now,
Mhm.
what are some things that we can do to cope to help with
Sure.
friends or family members who really need our support right now?
Mhm. Mhm. So I think connecting with friends and family members is the first step. I mean, even as a therapist, a lot of my work with my own patients or clients has shifted from maybe a mode, shifted into more of a supportive mode. So,
Mm-hmm.
normally, wherein oftentimes therapists are often maybe looking for people's sort of personal vulnerability or their personal triggers that may exacerbate certain
Mm-hmm.
fears and distress.
Mm-hmm.
This is very much a real fear and real fear and loss essentially, that's not clouded by people's own personal psychology. So I think being connecting, reaching out to friends and loved ones, and and also using that reciprocity. So building community at this time in a way that we can. We know that it's not going to be the same as how it used to be, where we're able to visit with each other or have in-person contact. It doesn't mean that it has to be all or nothing, and that's first and foremost what I think would be most helpful to think about is just your frame of mind. How are you framing this time
Mm-hmm.
for yourself mentally? So, number one, acknowledging that this is an extremely difficult time. Because often what psychotherapists know is that people sometimes, in defense of feeling distress, will almost be in denial or avoid the distress or become very judgmental and critical of it. I shouldn't feel this
Mm-hmm.
way, or I wish this would go away. And what we know is that can actually exacerbate duress, essentially. It doesn't necessarily help the symptom go away. Rather,
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging that you are feeling this way, it doesn't necessarily need to overtake you per se, but nonetheless,
Mm-hmm.
it's a real feeling, and validating that experience. So acknowledging that what you're feeling is very reasonable, whether it be anxiety, fear, sadness. Um, Also, too, acknowledging that you're not, as you just said, neighbors, friends, etc. You're not alone in this feeling. And as
Mm-hmm.
human beings, we're very relational beings, and so
Mm-hmm.
just the thought that we're all in this together can be comforting and can feel like a source of support. Um, Also, as I was just saying, as Dr. Bonanno's research has shown us that we are actually hardwired to cope with and manage through difficult times. We're sort of made of tough stuff, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and keeping that in mind. As even though you're feeling distressed, even though you're feeling anxious, and there's a lot of unknown, oftentimes we naturally have the resilience to manage difficult times. And so keeping that frame in mind, then it doesn't become about, well, why am I feeling this way? I shouldn't feel this way. Let me just get rid of the feeling. Then it can shift into, well, how do I respond to this feeling? How do I
Right.
respond to my anxiety? How do I respond to my sadness? And, I think using kind of taking advantage of what we're already doing. So I think most people, for example, are already doing a lot of screen time, for example. So we're
Mm-hmm.
watching TV a lot, we're on our phones a lot, we're on our computers a lot, during COVID even more than before. So using that time actually to, making your screen time effective for you, right? As in
Mm-hmm.
maybe going to different apps, that help with managing anxiety, with managing distress,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
meditation apps, mindfulness apps, so healthy apps essentially. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Encouraging sort of taking space for yourself. So again, keeping in mind your mental frame. Yes, of course, there's a lot of loss of daily routine, and people are unable to do maybe what they would normally do to feel good, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So this
Mm-hmm.
idea of accepting that, yes, there is a loss, but within this frame, what can I do what can I do? I may not be able to go to the gym, but perhaps I can, do workouts virtually at home. So that's important. A third thing is, creating a sense of normalcy for yourself. So yes, our routines were completely upended, but, now we have to create a new routine essentially. So making, even though I think I saw this really funny meme of someone's commute route, and it was like the kitchen to the room to the bathroom or something, but right. So sort of, using, basically creating a daily routine in your home, no matter how small the space is, including some structure in your day. And then lastly, I think, as you said, acknowledging that we are relational, and again, it's not all or nothing. So even though you can't see a friend, you can connect with a friend in other ways, whether it be virtually, whether it be on the phone. And I also think it's important to, one of my colleagues reminded us the other day in a staff meeting, I think that there's a saying, and I don't know who said it, about how we may all be in the same water, but we're in different boats, or not everyone is in the same boat, even though we're all navigating the same water, right? That water being the COVID situation, but not all of us are, navigating it in the same way. Certainly not all of us have the same resources to navigate it. So, or even the same frame, essentially. So, oftentimes it can be very helpful to connect with people who are in a similar situation as you, right? So, there's a difference between, let's say, a single mom, right, who may be quarantining with her child or her children, and she's having a very unique experience, different from somebody who is in a two-parent household, or different from someone who's single. So connecting with people who may be in a similar situation as you, checking in with each other, I think can also, again, help people to feel supported and in community. And that can have such a soothing effect, I think, on distress and helping to manage.